true stories that will haunt your sleep. This is Mr. H. You're listening to Masked Horror. The Whisperer in Apartment 3B. I've always been a light sleeper, which is probably why I noticed it the very first night. A faint whisper, like someone mumbling behind the wall near my bed. I just moved into my new apartment, Unit 3C, on the 3rd floor of a small aging complex. The rent was cheap, the neighborhood quiet, and it was just me, starting fresh after a breakup. The landlord mentioned 3B. The unit directly beside mine was vacant, had been for over a year, he said. So the whispering had to be the pipes, right? That's what I told myself, until I heard it again the next night. This time, I was certain someone was whispering. Not talking, whispering. The voice was low and unsettlingly close. When I leaned against the wall, I could make out my name. Just my name, over and over again. I sat up all night after that, too freaked out to sleep. The next morning, I knocked on the door to 3B. No answer. I looked through the peephole. Nothing. The windows were dark. Still, I asked the landlord again, just to be sure. Nope, no one's lived there since last March, he said. It's sealed. I have the only key. I wanted to believe him, but something felt wrong. A few nights later, I woke up to a soft tap against my bedroom wall. I held my breath. The whispering was back. This time, slower, more deliberate, like whoever was doing it wanted me to hear. Then the note started. Slipped under my door, folded tightly. No return address. The handwriting was uneven, almost childlike. You looked peaceful last night. You dream louder than you think. You should really lock your bedroom window. The last one hit me like ice water. I always locked my window. Always. But when I checked, it was unlocked. I called the police. They did a quick sweep, checked the hallway cameras, and took the notes. They found nothing and said it was probably a prank. Change your locks and keep the window shut, one officer told me. That night, I barely slept again. Every creak in the apartment made my skin crawl. Around 3 a.m., I heard soft footsteps in the hallway. I peeked through the peephole and caught a glimpse of someone, just a blur, ducking into the shadows near 3B. I brought it up to the landlord again. He got weirdly defensive. That apartment's off limits. There's no one there, he snapped. You're just letting your imagination get the best of you. I thought maybe I was, until I spoke with Miss Donnelly, the woman who lived across the hall. When I asked her if anything strange had happened before, her face changed. You're in 3C, right? She asked. I nodded. This happened to the last girl too. She was convinced someone was watching her through the walls. She got notes, heard noises. Then, she just disappeared, left everything behind. Police came. Landlord said she had a breakdown, but she didn't seem crazy to me, just scared. That night, I made the worst decision of my life. I decided to see what was inside 3B. The next morning, I waited for the landlord to leave his office, then slipped the key off his desk. The one labeled 3B was rusty, like it hadn't been touched in years. I waited until nightfall, around midnight, heart pounding. I unlocked the door. It opened with a low creak. The apartment was freezing. Dust hung in the air like mist. Furniture was covered in sheets, the carpet stained in strange spots. But what really stopped me were the walls. There were holes, dozens of them, crudely carved into the drywall at eye level, all pointing toward my unit, behind mirrors, under vents, even in the shared bedroom wall. That's when I found the crawl space. It was just behind the bedroom closet. Inside was a makeshift bed, blankets, food wrappers, and an old flashlight, and a sack of worn notebook pages. My name was on almost every one of them. She talks in her sleep. She cries when it rains. She misses someone named Aaron. She knows I'm here. Then I heard it. The front door clicking shut. I froze, turned off my flashlight. I heard the slow creak of floorboards, someone walking into the apartment. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I waited until the footsteps stopped, just outside the crawl space. I thought I was going to die. But whoever it was didn't open it. They just stood there for what felt like an eternity. I was holding my breath and covering my mouth as best as I could. I could just hear them breathing, and I could sense the tension in the air. I was convinced they would find me. However, the footsteps retreated. I crawled out and ran barefoot, shaking, straight to my car. I drove until the sun came up and never went back. Didn't even pack. I broke my lease, moved in with my sister, and filed a police report. They said no signs of forced entry. No one was in 3B when they searched. The crawl space had been emptied, the holes patched. I convinced the police to help escort me while me and my friends got my things out of my apartment with movers. I even paid extra to have as many movers as possible to move as quickly as possible. I still have paranoia and wonder who it was. Could it have been the landlord, another neighbor, or Mrs. Donnelly? Ever since then, I haven't been alone, and I've lived with my sister ever since. The returned package. I've always been into old cameras. I'm a freelance photographer, mostly doing weddings and small business gigs, but I collect vintage models on the side, film, digital, anything rare. A few months ago, I came across a listing on a marketplace app for a Canon 5D Mark II. Dirt cheap. The seller had a blurry profile photo. No ratings, but they said they were clearing out old gear from an estate. The camera shipped fast. No return address, just a plain brown box with the Canon inside. A bit scratched up, but functional. The battery even had a little charge left. What I didn't expect was the SD card still in the slot. At first, it was nothing unusual. Tourist shots, a woman at the beach, smiling at a resort bar, a man taking a selfie near a hiking trail. I assumed they were previous owners. But then, the tone shifted. Newer files showed the same woman, except now, the shots were taken from a distance, across parking lots, through restaurant windows, always grainy, always zoomed in, never posed. She didn't seem aware she was being photographed. Then came the night shots. One photo showed her through an apartment window, another from behind as she unlocked her front door. In one video, she's waiting for the train, headphones in, completely oblivious to the person filming her from the opposite platform. I froze when I opened the last file. It was a video, a little over 2 minutes long. The footage was shaky, poorly lit, and completely silent. The camera moved through what looked like a basement, cement walls, exposed pipes. And then it stopped, facing a corner of the room. That's when she came into view. She was tied to a chair, hands bound, duct tape over her mouth, eyes wide open, crying. The camera zoomed in slowly, like whoever was filming was savoring it. I slammed the laptop shut, My stomach turned. I felt disgusting, like I'd seen something I was never meant to see. It took a few minutes to calm down. Then I tried to contact the seller, but the listing was gone. Not marked as sold, completely wiped. The username no longer existed. That's when I made my second mistake. I told myself maybe it was fake. Maybe it was a film project or some twisted art piece. I convinced myself it wasn't my responsibility. I left the card on my desk and tried to forget about it. 2 days later, I came home from a shoot and 2 police officers were waiting at my door. They had a search warrant. They said a camera registered as evidence in a missing persons case had been flagged at my address after being connected to online activity. They found the SD card, asked me to sit down, and then started asking questions. Where did you get this camera? Do you know the woman in the footage? Has anyone contacted you since receiving the package? I told them the truth, everything. Showed them the receipt, the marketplace listing, though by now it was gone. They confiscated the card and the camera and told me someone would follow up. A week later, I got the follow-up, but no further information was given or disclosed to me. A few months went by and I didn't hear much. I Googled what I could, but nothing came up. As far as I know, the woman is still unfortunately missing. However, whenever I now buy online, I always put a note letting the seller know that I have no interest in extra SD cards and to make sure to check their camera before shipping. The man who didn't blink. I used to work late in an office building downtown. My job in finance meant long hours, especially during end-of-month crunch time. Most nights, I'd be the last person there, just me and the janitor down on the lower levels. That night was just like any other. I left around 11:45 p.m. The building was dead quiet, all the lights dimmed, and the only sound was the low hum of the vending machines down the hall. I grabbed my bag, hit the elevator button, and waited. When the doors opened, it was empty. I stepped in, pressed lobby, and leaned back, staring at my reflection in the mirrored wall like I always did when I was too tired to think. Just before the doors closed, a hand reached in to stop them. Someone stepped in quickly. Middle-aged guy, maybe 40s, average build, hoodie, jeans, sneakers. He didn't say anything, just nodded and stood near the buttons. I tried not to stare, but there was something weird about him. His skin looked wet, almost like it was covered in grease or oil. It reflected the elevator light in a way that made my stomach turn. I said something dumb, like long day, and gave a half laugh. Nothing. He didn't even blink, just stared at me, directly, like through me. I looked away, uncomfortable, and watched the floor numbers tick down. We were only going a few floors, but every second felt longer. When we passed the lobby and the elevator didn't stop, I panicked and hit the button again. Still nothing. Then, finally, ding. It stopped on the sub-level parking garage. The door slid open with that familiar clunk. He didn't move. I stepped out, heart pounding, pretending like this was my stop. The doors began to close behind me, but just before they shut, I heard rapid footsteps and the man darted out after me. I didn't think, I just ran. Across the concrete garage, shoes slamming against the cement. I could hear him behind me, steady, deliberate footsteps, not running like I was, but walking quickly, like he knew he didn't have to chase me to catch me. I ducked behind a random car and held my breath. My heart was thudding so hard, I thought he'd hear it. His footsteps stopped. Silence. I peeked around the bumper, and he was standing just a few feet away, facing me directly, not blinking, not moving. His face was still slick, still too smooth, like it didn't belong on a real person. I stood up and screamed and just ran toward the stairwell. I don't remember how many steps I took, maybe 3 at the time. I bolted up the first floor and ran straight into the security office. The guard, James, looked up from his phone, startled. I told him everything. The guy in the hoodie, how he followed me, how he didn't speak or blink. He took me seriously right away. We pulled up the elevator footage. There I was, getting in on the 10th floor. Then the man stepped in. But something was off. You could see the shape of the man, the hoodie, the outline of his head, the movements, but his face was completely blurred, not pixelated, not obscured, just wrong, like the camera couldn't pick up a face at all. James rewound it 3 times. Each time, same thing. No face, no defining features, no reflections on the mirrored walls. The police eventually came, did a sweep of the garage and stairwell. No one matching that description was found. No hoodie, no oily footprints, no trace of anyone. But that's not the part that really scares me. The next morning, I came into the office, trying to act normal. I went to grab a coffee from the break room. It was a normal day, as normal as it could get. But it didn't end there. A few weeks ago, my brother told me he saw someone across the street late at night, just standing there, not moving. Hoodie, same height, said the guy was staring straight at our building. We checked the cameras. No face, no eyes, no blinking. I don't know if it was a person or something pretending to be one, but if you ever get into an elevator and someone walks in who doesn't blink, get out, take the stairs, run, because whatever it is, it can follow you, and it already knows what you look like.